Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here today. My name is Judge Daniel Coble. As the Chief Administrative Judge for the Court of Common Pleas of Richland County, it's my honor and pleasure to be here today with this group of fine folks, lawyers, and family and friends. This is a very special day for all of us. Once a year, we gather together to commemorate those who have gone before us, and we are most appreciative of their service and their family and friends being here together. When I was a young attorney, Judge Manning often presided over these at the courthouse, and he always gave the same Bible verse every time. It was simply, Jesus wept. He wept because his friend Lazarus died, and he was sad, but shortly thereafter they were reunited together in a joyous occasion. So while today is a sad day, we mourn and grieve for those who have passed before us. We're filled with joy and hope when we are reunited again. So I'd like to take a minute to thank everyone who is here today, particularly the law school. Thank you for having us. The courthouse is going through some changes, and hopefully we'll be back there at some point, but we're appreciative to the law school and everyone involved for having us. Anthony and Wade, thank you all for being the co-chairs of this committee. Shannon Boberts, the president. Mandy Wren, who has done an excellent job of always keeping us straight and organized. Also very thankful to the Creole Court Reporting, who has done this for the past 10 years at no cost, because this is an official court hearing. And so we're thankful to everyone who has participated and been involved. Thank you to the members of the judiciary for being present. I know Chief Justice Costa-Paconis is here as well, and many, many others. With that being said, I will turn it over to Shannon to give our opening remarks. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Shannon Boberts, President of the Richland County Bar Association. Thank you, Judge Coble, for presiding today. Thank you to all the other Richland County judges, members of the bar, family and friends who could be here today. I want to thank Anthony Voti and Wade Mullins for chairing the committee that helped plan this special event, and Sheila Abram from the South Carolina Bar for being here today, and of course, Mandy Wren, who plans this event with love every year. This event is a special term of court for Richland County and a special offering of the Richland County Bar Association to honor those attorneys that we lost in 2025. We're honoring 14 attorneys this year. Although they live very different lives, had different practice areas, different areas of focus, they shared a common bond among each other and with us as attorneys. We honor our colleagues today because they engaged in a life of service, service to their clients, service to their communities, service to their colleagues, service to the judiciary, service to law students, and most commonly, service to the rule of law. We will hear about their lives today from people who matter to them. This bar is small. I have a few close friends who we tragically lost last year that are being honored today. Jim Librand, who's being honored today, co-taught a civil capstone class with Chris Isgett and me at the law school, and we both taught Kate Cardinelli, who's being honored today. She was one of our best students. My boss, Dr. Tom Mulliken, is honoring his lovely daughter, Mary Elizabeth, today. We tragically lost her the same week of my father, Farrell Furr, who we're also honoring today. The beauty of this state and this bar is that we are close and connected. I'm sorry to each of you for your loss, but I'm thankful that we have this special time to remember each lawyer honored today. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much. With that, we will begin. We'll start with Kate Elizabeth Cardinell by the Honorable A. Marvin Quattlebaum, Jr.
Please support.
Yes, sir.
Judge Coble, Dean Hubbard, family and friends of those being honored and memorialized today, and all other guests. I'm Marvin Quattlebaum, and it's my honor to be here, and it's my honor to talk about my friend and former law clerk, Kate Cardinelli. There's a former judge on the court I sit on who was renowned for long opinions. And when asked why he did that, he said, "It takes too much time to write short opinions." I feel a little bit like that today. I have a short amount of time to talk about someone who's very important, but I'll do my best. Many of the memorials today will be about folks, I know them, who've had wonderful careers and lives, achieved many things, and are known by many people in here. Kate's will be different. She died early in her career. And many of you, I suspect, might not have had a chance to meet her. If that's you, you missed a treat. And I'll try to introduce her as best I can today. Kate was a star. She attended Erskine. There she was valedictorian. She was homecoming queen, and she was a 4-year soccer player at that school. She came to the law school here, excelled there in law school as well, graduated near the top of her class, had many other honors and recognitions. After that, she clerked for the Honorable Joe Anderson on the district court. And after that, I had the pleasure of working with her on the Fourth Circuit. She then was selected into the Department of Justice through an honors program that is highly selective and highly competitive. She did that for a few years before coming back to Columbia, where she was a United States Assistant Attorney, also a very prestigious position. Those are some facts, but they only scratch the surface of Kate. I don't have time to do a whole lot more, but I want to tell you about 3 loves in her life to try to give you a little bit of a better sense of her. First, Kate loved the law. She did not just practice law, she really loved it. She loved digging into hard problems. She approached the law like most things in her life, with energy, tenacity, and enthusiasm. She loved people. She loved her family and friends. Her mom and dad, Carl and Betty, are here today. I've seen them. They're somewhere in here. I can't picture them right now, but they're here. Kate loved them, her brother and sister, who are here. She loved them. She loved her nieces and nephews. Kate loved people. She loved her friends. And to Kate, friendship was no casual relationship. If you were a friend of Kate, you had a deep, meaningful relationship with her. That is how she treated friendship. And Kate loved, most of all, her Lord. Kate believed, as I do, that God sent Jesus into this earth to live a perfect life and die a sacrificial death so that all who believed in him might have everlasting life. And that was her identity. And the interesting thing, as I was thinking about these remarks, is that Kate maintained those 3 loves even then when she was battling cancer. I said she died early. Once she came back to Columbia, she was diagnosed with cancer, endured a really brutal battle fighting that disease. Here in Columbia, in Charlotte, in MD Anderson, in Texas, in Chicago, Kate fought that disease as much as anyone could, but she ultimately succumbed to it. Even so, she maintained those 3 loves. I would occasionally, as for the law, I would occasionally get a call from her, and it was about an opinion that I'd written. She was reading crazy Fourth Circuit opinions when she was battling cancer. She'd tell me when she agreed, and she'd tell me when she disagreed. And if you know Kate, that won't surprise you a bit. Kate maintained her love for her friends and family. That might have been what she drew most of, or next to most of, as she battled that cancer. And she continued her love of the Lord. She had questions. She wondered why she suffered and was going through what she did, but her trust never wavered. She believed, again as I do, that in all things God works for good for those who love him and are called according to his purposes. So every day I think of Kate. That's because her mom, Betty, sent me this card and others at Christmas that has Kate's picture and a couple of verses. And at times I feel sad. But then I think and realize that Kate was right. that God did really work good even through that awful disease. And the goodest good of all the goods is, as we sit here today, she's at the feet of her Lord and Savior. And then I'm not sad anymore, I'm happy. Thank you.
Next is Michael O.W. Edens. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, I'm Wade Mullins. I have the honor of remembering Michael O.W. Edens. Mike Edens' daughter, Michelle, is a lawyer in Texas. I'm going to read remarks prepared by her. She couldn't be here today. I do believe that we have his wife, Ina, and his other daughter, Jennifer, in attendance today. Mike's family would like for him to be remembered foremost as a beloved family man whose daughters idolized him and still fully believe he might have been the smartest man in the world. They treasure his tendency to dance and sing, his willingness to be an equal caregiver, and for always having the quickest wit, the darkest sense of humor, and for generally being the life of the party. The family would like to honor Mike's ability to meet his clients where they were, regardless of educational or cultural background, with an awareness that his signature of X from an illiterate client was just as fine as a signature as one that ends in Esquire. His family is proud that Mike never lost the lessons learned from his humble upbringings in rural southeastern South Carolina. These lessons translated well into his practice in Chapin back in the 1970s when he was the first attorney there, when there were no stoplights to be seen, and sometimes payment came in the form of half of a butchered cow or a bushel of greens. Half of a cow would be quite a feat these days. Mike's family would also like to applaud Mike's deep and genuine love of the art of being a trial lawyer. His passion for and dedication to his career continues to be an inspiration and a reminder that it is possible to truly love your job. This love extended to his military service and commitments, both as a Marine, beginning at 17 with a little white lie about his age, and through working with the Navy JAG, where he rose to the rank of captain before retiring at the age of 62. Lastly, Mike's family wants to acknowledge the incredible grace he displayed living with Parkinson's disease over the final decade of his life. He remained appreciative and positive to the very end, always thanking his family and team of caregivers for helping him. As dementia took over his mind, his heart remained full of love. He is missed daily, and his family is so very grateful for him and his continual lessons. We would like to thank the Richland County Bar for the opportunity to memorialize Mike today, and know he would be as pleased as we are proud. Thank you.
Olin Farrell Furr, Jr. by Shannon Boberts. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Shannon Boberts. I'm Farrell Furr's daughter, and I'm here with my family today. I want to tell you a little bit about where my dad came from and how that shaped who he was. My dad was from Clinton, South Carolina, and was born to parents that had a 4th and a 6th grade education. And like any old-fashioned poor Southern family, we had our fair share of family lore, including trials and tribulations that shaped children and grandchildren. His grandparents worked in the mill. Papa Furr decided to unionize the mill workers in Clinton during the uprising of 1934, and as a result, he and his family were blacklisted, and the mill tossed his family and their furniture into the street, evicting them from the mill housing with no notice and nowhere to go. This incident, although it happened before my father was born, affected the family for years. My grandparents couldn't get a job in the local mill and had to work in Whitmire. My family had nothing, came from nothing, and therefore had nothing to lose. And as a result, the Furr family were born entrepreneurs. My grandpa and grandma opened a restaurant called Furr's in 1950 that was a popular hangout for the local teenagers. And my dad worked there and loved car hopping, checking out the cute teenage girls, and making a few extra bucks from tips. The Furr family were hustlers, they had to be. My grandpa and great uncle sold a family recipe tincture called Tertuit through the mail for many years that allegedly cured pellagra, a vitamin deficiency, until my dad came home from law school to tell them they were opening themselves up to liability with this unverified medical liquid that they were selling, and then they stopped. I tell you all this to say that my dad always wanted to help the underdog because he and his family were the underdog. He knew what it was like to be poor, to have the world stacked against you, and to need help. My dad told me that after getting out of the Army in the mid-70s, when he started practicing law, he decided he wanted to be a plaintiff's medical malpractice lawyer. No other lawyer was doing this at the time, so he didn't have any mentors to learn from. Everyone told him no jury was going to render a verdict in his client's favor. It was expensive. You had to order medical records, find a doctor that was willing to testify against another doctor, which was unheard of back then, and you had to front all the costs, but that didn't deter him. My dad saw that these doctors in these cases were hurting people, killing people, leaving people with a life filled with suffering due to their negligence, and he believed his clients needed help. And no one believed in him. His first law partner, Kermit King, told him if he wanted to practice med mal, he couldn't work at his law firm anymore. So my dad started his own. But he believed in himself, worked hard, took some big losses, learned from them, and was very successful. My dad taught me to have an abundant mindset, to be positive about the world. He believed that if you put in the time and effort and believed in yourself, that anything was possible. He was excellent at what he did, and he wanted to win, but he was never stingy with his time or his wisdom. This made him a great mentor to so many trial lawyers in this state. He was so generous with young lawyers. He answered questions on the trial lawyers listserv. He would talk to any lawyer that needed his advice, and he gave it freely. He was the plaintiff's bar's biggest cheerleader and biggest offender. He believed in it to his core, helping those who have been wronged and those who need help. He told me when he got his first big verdict, he was about to sign a multi-million-dollar check with a big pen, and the probate judge stopped him, told him to go to the jewelry store across the street from the courthouse and buy himself a fancy Mont Blanc pen to sign that check with. So he did. And years later, when he heard one of my law school classmates had a big verdict in Horry County, he bought her a Mont Blanc pen and sent it to her as a generous gesture to congratulate her on her win. I can tell you this, anytime I met a lawyer and they found out Farrell Furr was my father, their eyes would light up and they would tell me how much they loved him as a lawyer. It was like being the child of a celebrity. My dad was an excellent lawyer, both as a mentor and in the courtroom. When he realized he was going into hospice, he told me he had a good life and I'm ready to go. It gave me great comfort. He was at peace. Thank you for honoring him today.
Professor Thomas R. Haggard by Dr. Gregory Adams. Yes, sir.
Tom Haggard was a gentleman and a scholar, though he would deny both of those characterizations, probably critiquing my grammar, diction, and punctuation. Nonetheless, it's true. He was also my dear friend and mentor. Among my favorite times at the law school was talking with Tom. It was always an interesting conversation. However, Tom was a Texan. He decided not to be a farmer, but become a lawyer instead, and then a law professor, first at Rutgers and then here in 1975. Tom was a devoted husband and father and grandfather and great-grandfather. And he treasured those relationships. He and Nell were married for 63 years. He adored her. It was an epic love story, for she was the love of his life. He was also deeply devoted to Catherine and Julie, their daughters, who gave him such pride. Tom's greatest happiness was spending time with his family. Tom was an excellent teacher, as many people in this room know. He was known as the Texas Chainsaw in the law school. The reason was that during his tenure here, Tom set a new record for the use of the most red ink on student papers, a record he still holds. He taught labor and employment law, legal drafting and writing. He also taught contract law and was my mentor when I began to teach that course. He was a wonderful mentor and colleague and friend. The law school was better because of him, and still is. As I mentioned, Tom was a scholar in addition to being a Texan. He authored more than 35 books and articles. He was our legal writing guru. For more than a decade, he penned the Scrivener column for the South Carolina Lawyer, and that led him to write Legal Drafting in a Nutshell, which was sold nationally, and he wrote The Lawyer's Book of Rules for Effective Legal Writing. Yes, when it came to the rules of writing, of grammar and punctuation, Tom was a stickler. He wanted to help his students become excellent writers. It always struck me that a Texan who was a grammarian was bizarrely interesting, and I loved him for that. Some of the best times we spent were in expressing our dismay at students who did not know or care about the rules of comma placement. Yes, we were curmudgeons and we reveled in it. Tom was an excellent gardener. During the summer months, we were excited when Tom brought in some of his tomatoes to share with us. Tom was also a railroad buff and had the finest model train set I have ever seen. Tellingly, he made figurines of his loved ones and put them in his model railroad town. Tom enjoyed chess, photography, bonsai, college football, Texas Longhorns, of course, and reading more interesting things than the law. He was overjoyed taking his grandchildren fishing on Lake Wateree. Tom was really alive. He lived life to its fullest, making life better for all he touched. I miss him and always will. Tom, thank you, and God bless.
Kenneth H. Lester Sr. by the Honorable Jerry Benson. Yes, sir.
My name is Jay Benson, and I have the pleasure of talking about Ken Lester today. Like all of the presenters here today, I was asked to keep my remarks to about 3 to 4 minutes. I'm really not sure I have that much to say about Ken. He was my brother-in-law, but I'll try. His family. Ken was very proud of his wonderful family. Rose Nell Brewerton of Hemingway, his wife of almost 60 years. You know, Ken believed he was the luckiest of men to have such a wonderful wife. We all believe that Nell was entitled to beatification, or at least hazardous duty pay. His firstborn daughter, Chris Lester Long, his namesake, Kenneth Harrison Lester Jr., and his baby daughter, Kelly Long Lash, all of whom are here today. And Ken loved his grandchildren, who affectionately called him Pop Pop. I'd recognize all of his grandchildren, but that would take up my 3 minutes by itself. His parents, Lonnie and Polly Lester of Florence, they attended just about every one of Ken's football, basketball, and baseball games. Polly was well known, well heard, and I believe well feared by every referee, umpire, and sports official in South Carolina and beyond. His 3 brothers, John Lester, whose birthday we would have celebrated today, Dickie Lester and Lon Lester, and of course, his little sister, Flo Lester Vinson. Ken was fond of saying that he taught her everything she knew, but not everything he knew. That may have been a blessing. His profession. Ken was a lawyer's lawyer. He tried hundreds of cases in his career, appearing in nearly every county in South Carolina. The family court, where Ken primarily practiced, is a difficult arena, but his clients appreciated that they were well represented. And I have to say, Ken appreciated when he was paid. Ken's legal talent was recognized as he was a member of the prestigious American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers and a longtime member of a national group of elite family court lawyers known as the Family. Ken was always willing to share his knowledge and experience with fellow bar members who often sought his advice and guidance. He believed in continuing legal education, starting the family law program Hot Tips, one of the most popular South Carolina bar CLE programs, which has been held for over 30 years now. For many years, he taught at the nationally recognized Family Law Trial Institute in Houston, Texas. His Gamecocks. Ken played 4 years of football and 2 years of baseball while at USC. For decades, he was a fixture at Lady Gamecock basketball games. I think those were his favorite. The men's basketball games, Carolina baseball games, and football games at Williams-Brice Stadium, where he enjoyed catching up in the Letterman's Club. His attire. Ken's trademark couture consisted of Sansa slacks, SAS soft shoes, and absolutely no necktie. You know, Einstein once said, "I have reached the age when if someone tells me to wear socks, I don't have to." Ken felt the same way about ties, but I do think he wore socks. Ken loved lawyering, and he loved lawyers. Well, most of them. He frequently could be found in the Richland County Courthouse trying cases, viewing other hearings, or just swapping war stories with judges, lawyers, and courthouse personnel. If Ken was not at his office or at the courthouse, the next best place to find him would be at any barbecue restaurant within a 40-mile radius. Ken was larger than life. His death leaves a great void in the hearts and lives of all who knew and loved him. But in the words of that great modern philosopher, Jimmy Buffett, "And though I cried, I was so proud to love a man so rare."
Thomas Belton Levy, Sr., by the Honorable Costa Placonis, former Chief Justice. Yes, sir.
Thomas Belton Levy, 1948 to 2025. My friend and former colleague, Tom, was a preacher's kid, and he lived his life guided by the values instilled in him as a child by the late Reverend James Wilson Levy and Ms. Rosina Belton Levy. He was raised in Sherrall, was a proud graduate of Morris College in Sumter, which he served as its attorney for nearly 30 years until his untimely illness caused him to have to give up the practice of law. He holds an honorary doctorate from Morris and was named as an outstanding alumnus in 1996. He is enshrined in the college's Hall of Fame. Shortly after graduation, Tom married his classmate, Jean Reagan of Conway, South Carolina, and together they moved to Columbia, where he enrolled in this law school in a previous and more humble bricks and mortar iteration. It was here that they raised three fine young men, three fine young sons, Kip, Trey, and Todd, none of whom could be here today owing to their far-flung geographic locations. Following his graduation from law school, he accepted a position as an assistant Richland County public defender. That's where we met as colleagues and became friends, lifelong friends after that. His obituary informs that he was the first African American to be both a Richland County assistant public defender and a Richland County assistant attorney. I can assure you that when I hired him nearly 50 years ago as one of my assistant county attorneys, it was not to make a historic statement, but because he was one whale of a lawyer, really a great lawyer. In his many years of outstanding private practice, Tom represented the broad stratum of the privileged down to the underserved, all of whom he undercharged. He was active in the community and at the bar, serving on many boards, commissions, and committees, including a stint as the chair of the South Carolina Human Affairs Commission. He was a 50-year member of Zion Baptist Church, his church home, which he served as the chair of the Board of Deacons. Most important to Tom was his role as a husband, father, and Levy family member. In addition to his 3 sons, he is survived by his siblings, Richard, Reuben Sr., and Jean Levy Lewis. In a circumstance truly more poignant than tragic, less than 48 hours after his own passing, Tom was joined in heaven by his wife of 53 years, Jean. And I am sure that at this moment, as I speak, they are indulging in a spirited game of their favorite pastime, bid whist, and enjoying it as they should be. If you were lucky enough to know Tom Levy, you were lucky enough to know a truly great human being and a great lawyer. Rest in peace, dear friend.
James Bernard Librand Jr. by Jonathan Harvey. Yes, sir.
It was good to see Professor Adams and hear him talk about Professor Haggard. I can assure you I'm amongst their least distinguished graduates. So, James Bernard Librand Jr., he was known to us as Jim. To those he cherished the most, he was not known as Jim, but he was known as Dad or Granddad. This afternoon, we are joined by his loving wife, Julie, his daughter, Lee Ellen, and I'm not sure if her husband, Dr. Gray, is here, but they live in Greenville with their children, Coleman and Oliver. Another daughter, Laura Librand, has come up from Charleston to honor her dad. Daughter Rebecca Albert and husband Ryan Albert are in Atlanta with granddaughters Mary Margaret and Annie. And shortly last year, after we lost Jim in June, his son-in-law Ryan was named the athletic director at Georgia Tech. Jim would lend a sympathetic ear as I would talk about the tribulations of extended family. But when it came to Jim and his family, he had nothing but praise for his in-laws and his outlaws. I mentioned Jim's love for his family because it embodies how Jim looked at life and lived life. He had an appreciation for what are the most important pieces of the puzzle we call life. Jim was from Clinton High School, class of 1971. Jim comes barreling out of Lawrence County down to USC. He graduates in 1975. USC School of Law, class of 1978. The great thing about my friend Jim, he always knew where he was headed to because he never forgot where he was from and where he had been. His annual golf trips were with his buddies from Clinton, USC, law school, and assorted friends. Jim had a unique way to make all around him feel at ease. He was a lawyer who was admired by all. It's quite a tribute when your opponents and your colleagues equally admire you. And that tribute was for Jim Librand. You lawyers, and a lot of lawyers and a lot of non-lawyers, but this observation is special for lawyers. Lawyers will understand the observation I heard a lot. I'd hear people, I've got this difficult case, and man, there's some contentious issues. I don't know where we're headed, but I sure am glad Jim Librand represents the other side. This is because we all knew that Jim would be a fair and thorough advocate, but always with the civility That was his hallmark. His professional competence and temperament was recognized by his peers. His peers nominated him to be a member of the prestigious American Board of Trial Advocates. His peers elected him to the South Carolina Bar House of Delegates. And our Supreme Court, the Supreme Court, Your Honor, recognized this by placing him on the Supreme Court Commission on Lawyer Conduct. Jim was also an adjunct professor at the School of Law, and another little-known educational role that he was a Sunday school teacher. Jim was teaching and leading the Good News Believers Sunday School class at Trentham Road United Methodist Church. I knew, and I'm sure, that Jim was a great Sunday school teacher, because I'm confident Jim knew you can't have a meaningful Sunday morning without a good Saturday night. Now, Jim and I, despite our posturing to the contrary, he, like me, loved being a lawyer. We were both from a transitional group of lawyers, late 70s, early 80s. When we were introduced to the practice of law, it was an era when personal interactions and relationships mattered. And for us, it still does. Now, we also both sought refuge at our ancillary office, Henry's on Divine. Henry's is an establishment that pays homage to the Gamecocks, the Shandon Vibe, and weary lawyers on Friday afternoons. Jim was the mayor of Henry's, welcoming colleagues, friends, and newcomers. It was there at a table two kindred spirits would participate on the major topics of existence: music, sports, and politics. I think our major shared interest was music, especially what we considered the big four of music: Memphis, Muscle Shoals, Motown, and Macon. Now, our musical interests were heightened as we would look back and have a retrospective, and it would remind us of the music we loved, the musicians whose passing we would discuss, and be full of sorrow, because this brought us back to a time when civility was the norm. And we both lamented how many years on, the times, they still are a-changing. My last moments with Jim were about a year ago next week. He kept reminding me how much his trip with Julie, his beloved wife, to the Sphere in March had been a transformative experience. He had gone to see the Eagles. As I had done before and did the last time I was with him, I responded in jest, "Las Vegas isn't Mecca, and it's just the Eagles." But he was not having it. No, sir. He let me know how grateful he was that Julie had brought that moment to his life. And just like that moment, I know he was always grateful for how his children made his life blessed, how much he appreciated the collegiality and love he got from his legal family, church family, and many friends. I'm sure that after hearing about Jim today, you will know why, as he listens from above, he is a contented soul.
Elizabeth Ann Mortimer McLean by Robert Garfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I please score?
Yes, sir.
I'm Robbie Garfield, and I'm honored today to pay tribute to Elizabeth McLean. Elizabeth was a close and dear friend of mine, and also a longtime client. So when Mandy asked me very diplomatically, or sent it out diplomatically, to keep our remarks short, frankly, a wave of relief washed over me. because the ethical rules prevent and preclude maybe 99% of my content. So I'll keep this rated G for general audiences. I think that would probably be the way to go. Elizabeth McLean, often known as Beth, was a Columbia native and an alumna of the University of South Carolina and the USC School of Law. She had a distinguished legal career serving Richland County government. Elizabeth started as a law clerk in the Department of Unsafe Housing and gave 25 years of dedicated, excellent service to the citizens of Richland County. She joined the county's legal department in 2001 and held multiple roles of responsibility, beginning as a staff attorney, advancing to chief deputy county attorney, and in 2021, serving as acting county attorney. Elizabeth enjoyed a remarkable career as a county attorney and trusted liaison to state and local officials, attorneys, and justices. And sitting here today, I think Elizabeth would want me to mention that she really loved her some Costa Placonis, probably her favorite. And I think she learned a lot from folks on the bench, and because of that, she developed a keen understanding of government and diplomacy. She earned the respect and admiration of her coworkers, county staff, and colleagues throughout the state and the legal community. And most notably, Elizabeth applied her expertise to guide Richland County through the dark days of COVID and its many legal challenges. In a profession often defined by rigid personas, Elizabeth remained unapologetically herself, grounded and authentic. To everyone that knew her, she embodied strength and kindness, not only as an outstanding lawyer, but also as a rare individual who showed deep respect for everyone she met. She was truly an exceptional listener, and from those that know her, know exactly what I'm talking about. She had that special quality, making people feel fully seen and heard and valued. And what set her apart was that despite facing many hardships throughout her life, Elizabeth turned these into a source of compassion. She never let life's hurdles harden her heart. Instead, she drew on those experiences to give freely of herself, her time and her wisdom, without ever expecting anything in return. And this included so many things. Just a short list would be coaching youth baseball and adopting families for not only Christmas, but other holidays and times throughout the year. And she contributed her time and her talents and even gave her personal finances to help those in need. Elizabeth was a beautiful person with a heart bigger than most. Yet for all her strength and accomplishments, she never took herself very seriously. She'll be especially missed for her clever wit and her good-natured sarcasm. She had an angelic singing voice. She enjoyed reading, baseball, going to the beach. She was a devout fan of all things Walt Disney and a passionate Gamecock supporter. And really, above all, Elizabeth was a devoted and loving mother, spouse, sister, daughter, and friend. She leaves a legacy of loyalty, empathy, generosity, and commitment to the citizens of Richland County, her family, friends, and colleagues, and anyone fortunate enough to have known her. I am blessed that she was my friend.
Mary Elizabeth Mulligan by Dr. Thomas S. Mulligan. Yes, sir.
I gotta say this is sad time, so Dr. Adams, I tried to focus on 2-207 with Chainsaw Haggard because I still have PTSD from my days in contract law. So I tried to put my mind somewhere else. And for those of you taking pictures, any ugly cry on social media, I'm gonna come visit you. It's a difficult day for my wife and myself, but we're honored. Thank you for allowing me to talk about Mary Elizabeth. I'm somewhat humored by people who say, I remember Mary Elizabeth, she was such a sweet soul. Because I would be the person that didn't know my daughter. She was a fighter from beginning to end. To the legal community, she was a gifted attorney, a respected advocate, a trusted voice in government affairs, but to those of us who loved her most, she was something even greater. She was a fierce protector of people. She sought out fights. She believed deeply that the law was not simply a profession. She believed it was a calling. It was a means of defending those who could not defend themselves and giving voice to those the world too often ignored. She fought tirelessly for victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence. She carried that conviction into her work, into her friendships, into every room she entered. If someone was hurting, overlooked, or struggling, Mary Elizabeth noticed. And once she noticed, she acted. Sometimes tough to be around her. She had a tenacity that was extraordinary. She was a black belt in full contact karate, and I could talk all afternoon on her fights because she always wanted to fight bigger men. She never wanted to fight her own age group or her own gender. She's an accomplished attorney and an accountant. She fought in all areas of her life. She was not loud for the sake of attention, but she could be loud with me often. She was not combative for the sake of ego, but courageous in a determined way that truly changed lives and impacted lives. When Mary Elizabeth believed something was right, she stood her ground with strength, intelligence, and grace. And she brought that same fierce devotion to her family. I believe her life was cut short because she simply fought all the time. I'm going to go over my time limit if I'm not careful. She loved her siblings deeply. She adored her nieces and nephews who knew her as Ms. She treasured holidays, family gatherings, Carolina Cup weekends, and the traditions that we all held together. In many ways, she was our glue. Man, I wrote too much. What made her so remarkable is that she could move effortlessly from one community to another. She worked at the White House. Very few people knew that. She didn't talk about it, but she had meaningful experiences there. The State House, she moved in between these. She was brilliant, but never arrogant, accomplished, but never self-important. She was strong and deeply compassionate. If she was here now, she'd be embarrassed with her dad. As a lawyer, she understood statutes, policies, and procedures, but more importantly, she understood people. She understood pain. And loyalty. And demanded it. And above all else, she knew love. Even in our grief, we remain thankful. God bless.
Thomas Minton Neal III by Deborah Sheffield. Yes, ma'am.
I met Tom Neal on the first day of law school in August of 1981 while sitting outside of our constitutional law class waiting for Professor Haimbaugh. As we spent many weeks and months studying through 3 years of law school and then the summer of 1984 studying for the bar exam, we became the best of friends, more like family. It was a friendship that lasted 4 decades. After graduating, Tom began his legal career as a law clerk for Chief Justice Gregory, and later he moved on to working child abuse and neglect cases for the Fifth Circuit Solicitor's Office, which eventually led to a long career handling cases involving children's rights and interests. He became a trusted and respected guardian ad litem in private cases, and later in his career he was counsel for the Lexington County and Kershaw County guardian ad litem offices. I always marveled at his ability to handle these types of cases. So many were so tragic. All were seriously important because of the welfare of children was involved. His care for children also prompted him to volunteer to teach Adventures in Law summer camp sessions to middle school and high school students here at USC for many years. I enjoyed helping with those camps during some of those years. I remember one year, actually the last year I participated, we held our closing mock trial in this very courtroom. Tom is missed by many. Of course, his family and his friends, but also many attorneys and court personnel who miss his wisdom and seemingly vast mental database of ideas and options for difficult situations. I personally miss him as a friend and a colleague. We talk daily about personal family matters, such as our kids and his travels, but also do you remember that case? Or have you ever dealt with this? Or did you see that new opinion from the Supreme Court? Tom may be gone, but he lived well, served justice, and I believe he left a meaningful legacy in the family law community. Thank you.
William Llewellyn Pope by T. Lowndes Pope. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, I'm Lowndes Pope. I go by my middle name, unfortunately. But I'm here to speak about my dad, Bill Pope. I'm very grateful to Wade and Anthony and the whole members of the Memorial Service Committee for this day, as well as Mandy putting in so much work and effort into doing this, as well as Judge Coble for your participation. I greatly appreciate it. And Dean Hubbard, thank you. But I imagine that most of us do not look forward to this day, as we are here to honor our friends, our coworkers, our colleagues, and our family who are no longer with us. However, we are grateful that the bar has given us this opportunity to honor these great legal minds who each leave a unique legacy for all of us. For my dad, I think his service to others was of particular significance. He served his country, he served his family, he served his friends, he served his community, he served his profession, and most of all, he served his Lord. My dad sought throughout his life, he sought balance in all of these areas. And it was a legacy that he left behind for all of us, for his 4 children, and as well as all of his grandchildren. First, he served his family. He was married for 66 years, and his wife, my mother, is here with us today. And he helped raise 4 energetic boys. His proudest and likely most difficult times in life, or most challenging moments in life, were raising each of us 4 boys, for sure. He served his friends. He had a very quick wit, an infectious laugh. He made friends with lawyers, bankers, doctors, and just about anybody who would tell a good story. He loved a good story. He served his community. He was a member of numerous civic and social organizations. He was appointed chair of the South Carolina Mental Health Commission by Governor Riley. He did many things in the community that probably we will never know about, never hear about. He also served his profession. He practiced law for more than 45 years. Although he liked to be paid in money, he certainly accepted wonderful desserts or wonderful casseroles on occasion. And he would also have time for those who didn't have any money at all. He was a fearsome litigator who maintained respect from all sides of a case. And after as many trials, no matter how hard or difficult the arguments were, he would always have time to sit down for a cocktail with the other side, for sure. He served as president of the Richland County Bar Association, served as president of the South Carolina Bar Association. He was ultimately honored with the Durant Distinguished Public Service Award by the South Carolina Bar. He excelled in his profession through hard work and an exercise of common sense throughout his career. Lastly, I want to close with, he did serve as Lord. As a preacher's kid, he was also a preacher's kid. He was surrounded by the Christian values and morals since birth. He made sure all 4 boys were in church every Sunday morning, especially after a strong Saturday night. He served in about every capacity there was at Washington Street United Methodist Church, as well as the United Methodist Church as a whole in the state. I want to make a brief mention of Dad's examples of service to make an overarching point here today. The legal profession, maybe more so than any other profession in my opinion, gave us an inquisitive education. It provides us with varied opportunities. It often places us in somewhat unique circumstances, all to serve in so many impactful ways. It gives us the opportunity to serve with impact, and I think that's what my dad did. We miss our dad. His legacy of faithful service with his infectious laugh will continue to inspire us. Thank you all very much.
Warren Clyde Powell Jr. by Henry Wall. Yes, sir.
Warren Clyde Powell Jr., partner, counselor, and friend. Warren always wanted to be a lawyer, and he was a native son of this bar. He grew up here in Richland County, and he had the privilege to practice with some of the giants of our county bar association, the likes of Belser, Baker, Ravenel, Toll, Bender, and Bruner, to name just a few. Warren loved being an officer of the court, and he was good at it. He was a natural debater and storyteller, and he could converse on any number of subjects, but his favorite topic was the law, and he was always at the plow, always thinking about cases. Although he made a living from the practice of law, he was not in it for the money. He probably would have worked for food, brandy, and cigars. He loved the hard cases. He saw the practice of law as a privilege, honor, and an opportunity to do worthy things. He took the problems of his clients on his own shoulders. No client had a better advocate who worked harder than Warren. He often represented lawyers, and in that sense, he was a true lawyer's lawyer. He was particularly gifted in appellate advocacy, and he leaves behind him a trail of published cases associated with his name, which will prove to be one of his lasting legacies. When people needed help or ran into trouble, Warren was a good listener and a thoughtful counselor. He was a great encourager and always optimistic, ever hopeful about the future. The week after he had a terrible accident in which he broke 3 out of 4 limbs and several ribs, he insisted to his partners that he would be back in the office in a day or two. There was a toughness and a grit there that we should remember He was determined to get back to us through the pain, and he eventually did. He gave generously of himself. He inspired us in so many ways. We knew he was very gravely ill when he stopped coming to the office. His most disarming quality to me was his ability to make everyone laugh and smile. He was fun to be with, and he was also funny. He never took himself very seriously. You couldn't stay angry with Warren very long. He might frustrate you on occasion, leaving you to wonder, how can this little man be so exasperating and yet so endearing all at the same time? His other gift was his ability to make the mundane boring and interesting. Make the mundane and boring interesting. Oh gosh. You knew what I meant. He could dream up amazing ways to cook broccoli in a microwave oven and chicken on a George Foreman grill. He loved the law, his family, barbecue, and the Citadel. Warren was a gentleman and a character, and the character of the man was that he was much more comfortable helping others than helping himself. He lived by a simple creed: work hard, pull your own weight. Don't look up or down on a person based on how much or how little they have. Be satisfied and content with what you have. Don't quit too soon. Be kind and gracious to others. And he tried, however imperfectly, to practice law and live that way. We miss him every day. Thank you.
Michael Henneford Quinn by Michael Quinn Jr. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Quinn. I'm here to speak on behalf of my father, Mike Quinn. I could go on and on about all my dad's professional and personal accomplishments and accolades, but I don't think he'd like that, so I thought instead I'd tell you a couple things about him that some of you may not know. My dad loved dogs, but he didn't like cats. He had a good reason for it. He was born here in Columbia in 1939 and lived here till just before fourth grade when his family moved to rural Loris, South Carolina. A few days before his family moved to Loris, Dad had been playing with a cat and he got ringworms. Back then, what the treatment for ringworms was they shaved your head, painted it purple with iodine, and put pantyhose on it. So this is how my dad was introduced to all of his classmates in Loris. I'm not sure how many boys went to school there, but I know that every single one of them picked a fight with him. He didn't lose a single one of those fights. He gained a reputation as being somebody that you didn't want to mess with, and he became friends with all those boys, and never had any more problems with them. A few years later, the fair came to Loris, and you could fight an orangutan for a prize. So with Dad's reputation, all of his buddies said, "Quinn, you gotta do it." So of course he did. The orangutan's owner put a helmet on my dad's head, opened up the cage, and my dad stepped in. When he stepped in, that orangutan was holding on to the top of the bars at the top of the cage. So Dad thought he'd go in there and grab those legs and jerk it down and give it a whooping. Well, the orangutan, I guess, knew what was happening, so he dropped right on Dad's shoulders and started pounding that helmet until Dad had to surrender. It's the only fight that I'm aware of that my dad ever lost. After his Loris days, my dad's fighting was confined to fighting for his clients. As a lawyer, my father had a unique ability to take a client's problem, make it his own, and fight without surrender until he got the result that his clients deserved. My dad was an amazing husband, father, grandfather, friend, and lawyer. I miss him immensely, but I'm so grateful to have had him as a father, a boss, friend, and a mentor. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you.
Lloyd Williams by Matt Williams. Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you to the Honorable Daniel Coble for presiding today. Back when Dad was dropping Boogie and me off at middle school parties, I doubt he'd ever imagined that awkward kid in the back seat would be presiding as judge over his memorial service today. I'm sorry, Judge Coble, but you know Pops would appreciate me getting Boogie on the record today. I'm honored to speak on behalf of my father, Darrell Lloyd Williams. Probably 20 years ago now, a family friend was considering law school, but was concerned about the inevitable. He didn't want to live the life we all hear about big law, billing 2,100 hours a year, passive-aggressive requests from partners, work blending with personal life, and often becoming a priority above family. This friend sought advice from his mother about it, one of my mom's best friends. Now passed, I remember her as a very wise lady. She explained to her son, you really don't have to be that kind of attorney. You can just be a lawyer like Darrell. I tell you this story because I want to explain to y'all the kind of attorney my father was, the kind of lawyer Darrell was. I want to tell you about the things he was driven by, and perhaps more importantly, the things he was not. He was not driven by personal ambition. He was driven by the people around him. First his mother and his brother, first his parents and his brother, then his wife, his children, and ultimately his grandchildren. He was motivated by his clients and helping those who had been wronged. He believed in the rule of law. He was not motivated by honors or accolades or the latest pay-to-subscriber great lawyer list. He was motivated by seeking knowledge, information, hearing stories. He wasn't driven by the people watching. He was driven by the players on the field. He understood issues are complex and require great consideration, but he also knew solutions to those issues may very well be simple. He hated performative nonsense. He was anti-charlatan and pro-authenticity. Anti-ignorance and pro-education. He didn't believe in cynical, self-serving posturing. He believed in equity and justice. Above all else, like a true lawyer, he put the interest of others above his own. This carried over to his personal and family life, where he was an immensely involved husband and father. Instead of staying late at the office, he chose to coach my brother Jamie's basketball teams or my baseball teams. And instead of going and getting drinks with the judge, he'd go to a college bar with my mom to watch my older brother Steven shred on the guitar with one of his strangely named bands. Shout out Death to Van Gogh's ear. He understood that in these moments, in our chosen spaces, with us, he could make a sincere and honest connection. Never once did I, and I can confidently say my brothers, feel that our success or lack thereof would ever have any impact on his love or support for us, or even impact how proud he was of us. He once told me that if I surfed couches in my 20s instead of law school, he'd be proud he had a son resourceful enough to do so. I'm not sure he ever realized this, but it was evident to me. Fostering this connection with us allowed him to better connect with his clients. It allowed him to better understand their day-to-day lives and empathize with their troubles. When I asked my father on his deathbed of which case he was most proud, he told me it was Randy and Karen Smith, who lost their 11-year-old son, Drew, in a horrific boating accident on Lake Murray while father and son were peacefully fishing. The at-fault parties, a group of dangerously intoxicated boaters, lied to law enforcement and hid evidence in an attempt to place the blame on Randy for his own son's death. Well, my dad, along with good friends Russ Jeter, Bob Buchanan, cut through the blatant lies, and the boaters quickly found themselves on the other end of not only a wrongful death verdict, but an additional occurrence for civil conspiracy and defamation. It's not surprising to me that this was the case that touched him most. It's an embodiment of who he was. This case where he and his colleagues were able to cut through the lies, fraud, and bad faith to hold a group of bad actors accountable. This case where he was driven by doing what was right. He was driven by justice. Again, he was driven by those around him. See, I didn't know this at the time, but Drew and I were only a few months apart in age. Fortunately, Dad would never know the true pain Randy and Karen were feeling in those years, but I know he shared in feeling much of it along with me. In this day and age of endless performative self-promotion, it's important to note that Dad understood that our community isn't just a group to profit off of. At some point, somebody convinced us, even many of us pure-hearted lawyers, that all of life's value is in the amount of money in our bank account or the likes on an Instagram post, yet we all look around every day and we see that's simply not true. We see it in our children's eyes, in our clients' families, and I saw it in my father's practice of law. Dad was a loving husband to my mom, Stephanie, father to my brothers and me, and pops to 5 wonderful grandkids, Hayes, Monty, Gracie, Dottie, and Sasha. He was a skillful writer, a talented artist, a great shot, a creative cook, a formidable opponent, a patient mentor and coach, a fair and balanced mediator, and a hell of a lawyer. I'd urge you all, consider once in a while being a lawyer like Darrell Williams.
I want to thank you all again for being here. I want to thank USC Law School for hosting us, Dean Hubbard, as well as Jeff Rhodes for doing an excellent job helping us film this and stream it live. Mandy Wren, as always, for putting this together. Anthony and Wade, a wonderful job, and Shannon for bringing us all here together. To the families and friends, thank you for sharing your memories of their legacy. They lived not just good lives, but beautiful lives that will not be forgotten. And to you all for being here today, thank you for being here. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hands. Amen, and we are adjourned. Thank you.